By the way, this also handles unhandled exceptions and routes them into the logger. So if you have a syntax error in your code and you're not already enabling the debug stripping, you've turned off debug stripping, don't turn off debug stripping is what I'm saying. Just use the logger. You'll be able to catch the messages here. And then you won't get any annoying. Your game will continue to run as best it can, and you'll be able to look at the log. For example, the demo right now has a bug. Let me show it to you. It has a bug. There's two examples in here. Idea 1, which is just showing a layout, and then if I hit the left and right arrows, I can show that my dude. This probably doesn't look very good on Google Play. It's probably a little bit lurchy, but it's smooth when you run it on the desktop. It's just that it's not all going through the Google Play. And then I can hit the escape key and go back out to the menu. And then I can go run Idea 2, and this uses a different camera style. And this camera style has a debug output. And here's the bug. So when I hit escape, the debug output does not go away. Something's wrong. And then if I rerun it, I think it stops working. So if I do a Control L. Get out of here. This is. You can see that I did something bad, and I'm getting a bunch of unhandled errors in my code. So at this point, if I had been running this with no log, I'd be scratching my head going, what is going on? Now, yeah, clearly I could run this in the simulator and probably reproduce it. But this is the case where you're like, I'm running it in the desktop. I just want to see what the problem is. Too bad. It's no longer too bad. Thank you very much, Jason Schroeder, for producing this nice fly-in code that I'm using, and some other stuff that he did that made it possible to convert text and tables and stuff to text, to strings. I mean, that was always possible, but he did some of the heavy lifting, and so I'm using that.
Very cool.
Okay, so that's pretty much it.
All right. Well,
that
is what's that?
Looks maybe I got a leak too.
Thought that was too much information.
Oh no, my log was so full it was filling up.
All right. So we've covered inputs, keyboard and mouse. Now we've covered project, configuration, the design decisions before getting into the actual game design itself. What's the next step?
The next step is now that we've got a basis, we've got a project to work with. These two examples will be left alone, but we're going to take these two examples, one of them, and we will start exploring. Let me relaunch this. Sorry. Hard to demo when you have a bug. Let me show you in the thing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this example, and then we're going to explore movement. And we're going to explore using our mouse for aiming. And next week's game is basically going to be this guy moving around with enemies coming in off the screen, and you'll be able to shoot a basic projectile at them, and there'll be like a little score counter, and that'll be about it. We will start to explore the concept of a basic shooter and how to bring enemies on the screen, how moving around affects things, how do we limit how far the character can move. For example, this world, hopefully we'll get there sometime in this century. Well, this world is very large, and yet it's not infinite, so we will probably want to, of course I've made it so large it'll never get there. What we will want to do is limit how far the player can move within the world so that someday, this doesn't happen and we walk off the edge of our world. We don't want that. So all of these decisions we'll discuss these next week, and we'll get a rudimentary shooter in place.
Okay,
but at that point, there will still be lots of decisions to make about the shooter.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think just moving around the screen as you're showing there will be a good conversation to have as a kickoff.
Well, that's one line of code in SSK, but yes, this is why I use SSK. That's like 100 lines of code. But in SSK, I want to explore 3 different camera types, then I'm not going to write those three up and go, hey guys, let's talk about three different camera types so we can decide on which one we want to use.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more thing I wanted to show. I know we're into the late, but it makes a lot of sense if I can find it. I sent you a link to this, but there is a great article that we are going to talk about while we're doing this. Let me bring it up. There's a great article. I will give Charles the link, and I hope Charles will put it in the show notes, on Gama Sutra that talks about all the old school cameras, and it really goes into depth on camera controls, and let me bring up some here, like how the camera decides when to move and update, and it gives little examples based on old games that we all might be familiar with. It's a super cool article that has encouraged me to increase the debug output on the roaming gamer cameras so you can see these things in action. Because, like for example, this camera here allows you to move around freely in this space. Let me zoom in a little bit. So you can see this character's moving around, and as long as he doesn't hit the edge of the box, the camera doesn't move. But once he hits the edge of the box, then everything in the world moves to keep him from going beyond this line. And so there's lots of interesting camera designs, but it's really hard sometimes to visualize what's going on. And they did such a beautiful job in this article of showing it that I'm going to update my camera code to show you the debug output. Like, for example, that little circle you saw earlier is this same kind of concept, which gives you a sense of when the camera is going to start updating, et cetera, et cetera. So, but this is a really cool article. I strongly suggest that everybody watching the show read this, because you're going to learn a lot about camera decisions that you just never thought of before, things you never thought of before. Hopefully, I don't know. Right. Some people maybe they're like, yeah, I know all that stuff.
Well, that sounds like homework.
It is homework.
Yeah.
It is, in fact. Wow. Am I that close to the camera? I feel like my camera is huge now.
It's probably because you zoomed. I don't know.
Hopefully my mug isn't like taking up the whole screen right now, and people are watching YouTube going, "No, get back!"
Don't look at me, I'm hideous.
So next
all right, well there you go.
Shooter going, and then we'll talk more about cool stuff.
All right, so if you haven't already, go back and watch Corona Geek 163. Check the link in the show notes for this one, Corona Geek 164, and then on 165 we will kick things off. Start doing some camera code, or not some camera code, but anyway, we'll start doing some code, some more code.
Yeah. We'll play around with the game. How far we get through the whole explanation of how every bit works. Maybe we won't get all the way, but it'll be there, and you can play with it, and then we'll be able to play with some of these decisions we talked about today and see how they affect things.
Yeah, I think at this point we're still very much in concept mode, right? I mean, like you've said, we're still
that's what I'm trying to say is that we're very much exploring things, and we want to take apart the individual mechanics so we understand how they affect our game and how they work.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it. All right, you guys be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific to talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK and desktop development using Corona SDK. Until then, have a great week and happy coding.
Cheers.